This video is sponsored by Keeps. More on them later. This channel has a long history of talking about hidden things in video games, as we dip into that magical world full of secrets and Easter eggs and just can't get enough and have to keep coming back for more content. And hey, it's December, we're about to talk about the best and the worst games of the year. We're gonna need some extra content, especially if no one can see it. If you described the very concept of things being out of bounds in a video game to someone with little to no experience of looking for this sort of stuff, don't be surprised if it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. It's less thinking outside of the box and more so actually placing things outside of the box so that no one can see them unless they deliberately no-clip through solid walls or experience just the right sort of glitch. These are secrets that both took a long time to find and also weren't seen by a ton of people, so if anything, this should give you encouragement that there are very likely secrets in your favourite games that haven't been found yet, since who is out there no-clipping through every solid surface in every game ever made in the hope of finding some weird leftover asset that a programmer didn't remove during testing? And yet, as a man who is yet to turn 35 and is very likely to have his hair evacuate his head very quickly in the next few years, I take the pleasantly surprising new findings whenever I can. But maybe, thanks to this video's sponsors Keeps, I won't have to. These guys are pretty dang smart when it comes to preventing hair loss with their FDA-approved treatment for hair loss that comes with years of experience and a ton of successful case studies under their belts. They're so smart that they know that hair loss is different from one guy to the next, which is why their treatment comes in 3 different variants depending on what kind of hair loss you're experiencing. Plus, you can get everything shipped directly to your door so you don't have to wait for the world to be not so diseased before you can fix your hair. Keeps' treatment packages are already cheaper than their competitors, but with the deal they're running with me today, you can save even more money. For a limited time offer, you can go to keeps.com/rabbid or click the link in the description to receive 50% off your first order. Stop hair loss now before it's too late. Alrighty then, it's time to go out of bounds. Oh, there I go. Secrets in and out of bounds end up there for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's intended as a sneaky Easter egg to nod in the direction of players who dabble with cheats, and sometimes it's some leftovers that a developer forgot to remove while constructing the level. It's not always obvious which one it is, but there's actually a third option because of what is required behind the scenes for a game to function properly. There's loads of invisible triggers that load areas at the right time that store values or properties just out of view, and if you want to be technical, there's literally thousands of these secrets hidden off camera. She says there's a whole show about it. I quite like what Skyrim does, which is work most of the time and occasionally fall apart in a torrent of glitches, but specifically for the out-of-bounds stuff. This game likes to hide incredibly important stuff just below the ground so that you can't see it, but oh, it's there alright! And you don't have to work all that hard to reach it. Skyrim is full of useful glitches that you can exploit to get a ton of money really quickly, and it's actually very helpful for a bunch of speedruns that require you to have money to spend. And while you could easily sell a merchant's inventory back to them with some fancy glitches, why don't you just reach into the ground and take all of their stock and their money with minimal effort? You know, all you need is a shovel. Not even a shovel actually, because whereas stuff being underground would usually require digging equipment, Skyrim is janky enough to let you access merchant chests through the ground. Merchant chests are fairly self-explanatory and simply contain the shop inventories of merchants in the surrounding area. And because Skyrim is a crazy game made by crazy people, apparently their inventories need to be physically tangible nearby. As in, they can't simply have values associated with them so they can populate certain items, they need to draw their wares from a hidden chest nearby. A decent idea in theory, I guess, but less so when the chest is so close to the surface that many of them can be accessed by interacting with this random patch of dirt. The crazier ones can be reached by clipping through walls and floors and standing on them before you fall through the endless void below, and I say crazier, but what I mean to say is more well hidden. Hidden like they probably should be elsewhere in the game, but hey, it just works. Not all out-of-bounds secrets are this useful or this normal, I guess, but for its utility, I'm glad that Skyrim is broken sometimes. Plot twist of the century if the next one is like a normal game. Glitches are part of the design brief at this point. I don't want to promote the idea that games developers are lazy and they just leave things behind while developing a video game, because if anything, over the last couple of years, we found out the opposite, and actually they are incredibly underappreciated and work under really terrible conditions. So yeah, not gonna do that. Just let them do what they want. If anything, I want to see more programmers hiding thinly veiled fuck yous to their higher-ups that only the most curious of player are likely to find. There's definitely been a few of these in the past, but they're usually not much more interesting than an angry message that someone's left in a place that they know their boss won't find. And hey, that's great, but I can only hear so many complaints about the industry before I feel bad about playing video games and having a YouTube channel that talks about games. Never mind that then, because in Super Mario Sunshine, a game that, like Skyrim, is hardly a stranger to glitches and things going horribly wrong on a regular basis, if you can find your way through the floor in Pinner Park, there's something interesting that you can find down here. You might even call it a shocking discovery! Haha! Oh fuck, that hurt! So I actually knew about the weird two-dimensional Goomba-looking enemy underneath Pinner Park before making this video, but I didn't know that it could do damage to you. That kinda changes a few things, because I always thought that it was more of an Easter egg than anything, a little nod to how Goombas aren't really in this game, but how Nintendo still know that you like to see them. Nah, in fact, it's more complicated than that, since being able to interact with the paper-thin Goomba, apparently called Cug, with a K, implies that it was intended to be a functional enemy at some point. Jumping on its head electrocutes Mario, so it's possible that Cugs were like anti-Goombas that punish you for doing the thing that usually works on Goombas, and that's such a cool idea for an enemy that I don't really know why Nintendo haven't somehow reworked this idea into a later Mario game. For now, Cug is a Mario Sunshine exclusive secret, hidden away underneath an amusement park, listening to all those people having fun and waiting patiently for his moment to shine. Put him in Smash Bros, you cowards! Few games have ever been combed over as hard as the original Tomb Raider. Maybe the first generation of Pokemon when people were looking for Mew, but I reckon it's close because Tomb Raider was a huge cornerstone of 90s culture that players fell in love with for a variety of reasons, but also because the internet wasn't so functional in those days, and a Lara Croft with a bust that is almost as big as it is pointy will do lots for lots of people. Hey, this is a PG-13 rated game, so there was never likely to be anything too racy in here, but at the same time, I feel like the devs knew what they were doing here, making a game about an athletic archaeologist marketed towards pubescent boys who probably played this game as slowly as possible. Alas, there is no cheat code that undresses Lara Croft, with Eidos Interactive going so far as to issue cease and desist takedowns for any website that hosted any images of the fan-made nude patch. And if you haven't already, I'm sure you're wondering what the hell I'm talking about and what it's got to do with out-of-bound secrets and whether or not there's actually a random bit of nudity in a later Tomb Raider game, and actually there fucking is! Probably not what you were expecting though. Alright, so we've been talking about stuff being left over when a dev is screwing around with ideas, and what we've discussed so far hasn't been hidden all that well. However, Tomb Raider 4 is a tad bit different, where there's a handful of clearly intended secrets and Easter eggs, but there's also a secret temple that you can't access through legitimate means. It actually takes a lot more than exploiting a glitch, since it's so far off the beaten path that you need a position editor to even get you close. Waiting around a corner is this secret temple that houses nothing and has no purpose, hence why it's so far around a corner and why the devs made it impossible to reach with legitimate means. What's interesting about it is likely something you've already noticed, and that's how every panel of this temple has been textured with this lady with her arms up. Yeah? Is that what that is? Yeah, I think so. I'm not too sure where this comes from and why it's been plastered all over the walls of this hidden temple, but I suppose it could be a placeholder texture or a texture that was originally something more brick-like that was changed to be more woman-like? I don't know, this is weird, but at least it captures the essence of exploring a truly hidden temple. Like, how many people are going to see this when playing Tomb Raider 4? I'm an explorer extraordinaire. So are out-of-bound secrets glitches or Easter eggs or both? It probably comes down to the intention of the developers and if they made the conscious decision to hide something for players to find. You certainly need glitches to find them in the first place, so that leads me to believe that they're more programming quirks or leftover assets that were never removed from an earlier testing stage. You get a lot of this in shooter games where the devs were testing a particular weapon or a spawning location in a multiplayer map, and sometimes stuff gets left behind and lingers in impossible to reach locations, just waiting for someone to stumble across it one day. Call of Duty World at War is a fairly serious World War II shooter from around the time when Treyarch were good at making these games and Activision didn't have a Cosby suite yet, and so it's actually a really good game with suitably kick-ass multiplayer. One of its DLC maps, called Verrückt, has a quirk with its fountain where you can shoot from it. Yeah, hold X to use, it says, and since you're not playing in the water or drinking it, you're actually attached to the outside of the fountain so that you can shoot people with it. You're not supposed to be able to shoot someone with a fountain. Call of Duty likes to hide things in its multiplayer maps, and I'm not sure if that's to reward the enterprising player who fancies exploring a forgotten corner of one of these maps, or if it's the thought that more people are going to play multiplayer than single player and hiding something in the campaign is just asking for it to be ignored. But either way, these maps generally have some really crazy things if you want to look around a bit, especially in locations that you can't possibly go. So, this fountain gun, I feel like we need to talk about that. If you didn't know better, then you'd imagine that this is the devs being quirky and hiding an invisible mounted gun inside a fountain, so it looks like you're shooting bullets out of it. But while that would be interesting, it doesn't make much sense within the context of this video. However, get some no-clip going and you can take a peek at what's happening, and it's actually simpler than an invisible gun mount, since it's just an MG42 floating in the void that is somehow interactable without clipping the player into the floor in any way. I kinda get the sense that this is deliberate, since the placement is a little too perfect for the scenario it creates, but the biggest smoking gun is what happened when this map made a return in Black Ops 3. Sure enough, the MG42 is still here, but this time it's on a plinth on a mound of skeletons, and with 2 zombie arms hanging off of it. I can only presume that taking the time and effort to remake the Out of Bounds fountain glitch thing is an indicator that this is far from a glitch and completely deliberate. Were Vanguard's crappy launch sales also deliberate? Sure feels like we've come a long way and done terrible things. I'll admit that I had a decently hard time trying to think of some truly iconic out-of-bounds secrets. The nature of going out of bounds isn't something that everyone is likely to do, and therefore it's like the ginger stepchild of Easter eggs. Yeah, sure, it's the way to go if you want to hide something really well, but it's reliant on someone exploiting your game in a way that not a lot of people will do, so maybe don't put the true final boss of your game behind the requirement of using no-clip? That sounds like the sort of madness you'd only ever do if you had a bit too much faith in your own creations as a game developer, and no one fits that description better than John Daikatana Romero, who, fresh off the back of creating his magnum opus, superb 3D Noah's Ark, set about creating the sequel to Doom. And make it he did in virtually the same way as the first game, except the demons have made their way to Earth, and it's up to Doom Guy to shoot the fuck out of them until, like, the 2 people left alive on Earth are liberated. What kind of name is Icon of Sin anyway? Get the fuck out of here, I've got walls to walk through. Really, there's only ever been one poster child for out-of-bounds secrets in video games, and that is John Romero's severed head on a pike, hidden away behind a wall in a secret back room of the final boss's area, which I suppose, technically, makes it the true final boss. Romero's head can do damage to you after all, but mostly everyone who gets this far into the game just smokes him in a couple of shots, and just like that, we've got the most famous and weirdest uses of out-of-bound content in video game history. It's a strange flex to put your own head on some sharpened wood as a joke, since it's reliant on people deciding to use no-clip at this point in the game, at a time when you're defeating the final boss, and most people are more concerned about basking in the glory of their victory instead of getting reacquainted with the head of the development team. Not sure if we're still having the debate over whether or not out-of-bounds secrets are deliberate or not, but I guess it's possible that Romero accidentally had his head scanned, and it was accidentally put behind a solid wall at the end of the game. Hey, you put something like this in Daikatana, and it might even turn it into a halfway decent video game. Hard to turn anyone into your bitch when you're a head in a hallway. This just follows a trend of developers putting personal things into video games that doesn't really fly with the rest of the game. You got John Romero's head in Doom 2, you've got Sakurai's cat in Smash Bros, you've got Kojima in Metal Gear Solid 5. I'm thinking that developers are just divas. This is RabbidLuigi, and if you've enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe for more in the future. And if you want to watch something right now, there's a video here about games where you die at the end. I also want to thank my top supporters on Patreon, including Devon Hutt, Sarah Malion, and AJ887. Thank you for watching, and I've never been happier to fall through the floor.